I'm Christine Giordano with Markets Group, and I'm here with Javier Alberto Soto, who's the president and CEO of the Denver Foundation. And he has been working quite intently on some DEI initiatives that have been transforming the way investors see DEI initiatives on their teams, in their landscapes, as well as how they deal with managers. So I thought we might touch base with Javier today. Welcome, Javier.
Thank you so much.
Can we start by talking about what the Denver Foundation is and what you do?
Sure. So the Denver Foundation has been fueling philanthropy in the Denver metro area for close to 100 years. In 2025, we'll celebrate our centennial. We came together back in the early 1900s to provide a platform to make it easy for folks who care about and are passionate about this community to give back to this community and to set it up for success over the long haul. And so we manage an endowment. Think of it as the community's endowment, much like you would think of a university endowment or a hospital endowment. We manage the endowment for Denver. And in addition to that, we partner with philanthropists who are very much active and want to be involved in their giving and tap into the resources and the community expertise that the Denver Foundation has to establish their own giving vehicles at the Denver Foundation and then give back to causes that they're passionate about, that they care about, and that they know will propel this community forward.
Fantastic. And having said that, why did you think it was very important to focus on DEI within your organization? What was key to your decision there?
Well, first, I'll take the clock back a bit because this is work that the Denver Foundation has been working on and focused on for over a couple of decades now. And frankly, I'm proud to say has been a national leader in putting these issues front and center through a philanthropic lens. And so the credit goes to David Miller, who is the CEO of the Denver Foundation, going back now probably 25 years. And, David started talking about issues of diversity and inclusion and more recently equity, long before I came to the Denver Foundation. And so I think we have not only the history, the background, but also the knowledge and the commitment to strive towards a more just, a more racially equitable community. And so the board of the Denver Foundation and under the leadership of David has been focused on this for a long time. So now, more recently, we adopted a strategic framework to guide the next 10 years of our work. This was in the height of COVID a couple of years ago. And once again, the board and staff recommitted to centering racial equity in that strategic framework and making strategic making the strategic directional decision to have everything we do come through that racial equity lens.
And so, what specific steps have you taken to focus on the DEI in the organization?
Sure. So what I think is important is that we not think about this as a siloed responsibility that pertains to one person who's going to manage and oversee and implement an entire DEI strategy. Everyone in the organization is responsible for advancing this work and this vision. And it is to be reflected in everything that we do. So if that's policy work, if that's grant making work, if that's fundraising, certainly on the operational side, on the hiring side. So it's just making sure that that lens is placed on every facet of our work, so that everybody feels ownership over it.
That makes a lot of sense. And Denver is such a diverse city. You have people from all walks of life. Um, did you find it difficult to focus on DEI in your own investment strategy as you apply it to your portfolio?
Well, the investment side is complicated, not just because of DEI, but anytime that you're looking to insert your values and align your mission with that investment portfolio, it becomes more complex. And frankly, I think there are a number of institutions, particularly in the philanthropic space, that are grappling with how to do this effectively and then how to measure those social outcomes. But I'll give you one example. There is such a tiny amount of invested wealth that is managed by women and or people of color in the manager space and the investment management space. Tiny, tiny percentage nationwide. When we started on this journey a couple of years ago, we found that our investment portfolio was being managed by less than 1% women or people of color in the manager space. Today, I'm proud to say that across our entire portfolio is 22%. And in our sustainable and responsible investing pool, it's almost 50%. So that part to me was just about making it an emphasis, making it a priority. And there's been no sacrifice in terms of financial performance or anything else. To the contrary, I believe that having this kind of diversity, diverse perspectives, diverse backgrounds in your investment management team just strengthens your ability to do better. So we put an emphasis on it, and just by saying this is important to us, again, we went from basically 0 to 22%, and in one pool close to 50%.
Wow. They say good leadership comes from the top down. How did you instill that into your culture at Denver Foundation? How did you kind of motivate? Because I hear all kinds of things, that we can't find the managers, that the managers don't have that much experience, and so we really have to do extra due diligence. I'm talking about the emerging minority manager space. But what did you put in place to specifically get people motivated to create that change?
Well, first, I want to give total and full credit to our investment committee and our board as well, because they were all in on this vision as well. They're the ones that adopted the strategic framework centering racial equity. And so when I said that means it has to go across the entire organization, the investment committee took up that mantle very, very seriously. And then working with our investment consultant, NEPC, just again made it a priority and said, we're not going to accept some of the answers or, frankly, excuses that I've heard that you just rattled off. I've heard them all before as well. They're excuses. Yeah, maybe you've got to work a little bit harder. Maybe you've got to do a little more diligence and digging, but go ahead and do it because this is important to us. And so once you just state, A, it's important, B, we're not going to take, lame excuses, frankly, for, to not do it, it gets done. It gets done. And, I should say as well that NEPC was part of that transformation because they took over the portfolio around 3 years ago, maybe right around the time that we were going in this new direction. So even through that RFP process, we made it clear to all of the applicants, this is something that we're going to be looking for. So they weren't surprised when they came to their first investment committee meeting and were told, you have this mandate. Bring us this diverse and talented pool of managers that we can work with.
And if we could drill into exactly what your DEI investment strategy looks like now that it's underway.
So we have several pools at the foundation. We offer our fund holders the option to choose any of our internal pools or to work with what we call an advisor managed pool, where an outside advisor would come in and manage the assets for that fund holder if they're above a certain threshold and meet all of our sort of IPS standards and those types of things. So first, the fund holder is given choice, right? And then within those choices, I referenced earlier our SRI pool, Sustainable and Responsible Investing pool. That's where I think most of this mission alignment is coming into play. And the racial equity piece is a big part of that. There's also a climate sort of layer to that. And I should say all of this is being sort of strategized and implemented as we speak. But at the end of the day, what we want to do is make sure that when we're making investments, they're not investments that are helping to create an even wider wealth and disparity gap in our community and in our country, frankly. especially when those disparity gaps tend, as you all are aware, to significantly impact communities of color. So we're looking through that lens in these investments and working with these managers. So if it's a climate solution, again, is it a solution that also helps to lift up and empower communities of color? Or is it a climate solution that's simply going to result in an even wider economic disparity gap in our country? So that's it. I said earlier, this is complicated work. It takes a lot of diligence and a lot of analysis to go through that. But I think you have to start with what's your North Star? Understanding where you want to go as an organization. And, for me, it's not okay to say we're going to try to impact the world and create a more just and equitable society through our 5% grant making budget and not even talk about the 95% that's being invested, that's just out there on the sidelines and with the only charge to drive returns. Obviously we want returns, obviously we want positive returns. Frankly, I want to beat our peer group in terms of our performance, but I also want to drive social impact with 100% of our assets, not just 5% of.
That's incredible. I haven't heard this, that you're actually, you have your SRI and you have your climate initiatives, but you're also making sure that it's equitable for the minorities in our communities and in your specific community. How does that actually work? Do you find vendors who are able to supply solutions who are minorities, or how does that, function in the whole integration of it?
So there's also an impact investment portfolio that we manage, where we have very targeted and direct investments in opportunities that are lifting up communities of color. But in the broader, public equity markets and private equity, et cetera, we're looking for those opportunities that, again, allow us to lift up communities of color in meaningful ways. ESG plays a role in that, and I know that ESG has become, a bit of a lightning rod politically. For us, we view ESG as a tool, and in this context, I think it's an important tool because part of the ESG metrics that we look at that are developed by NEPC are looking at investments that the company is making in their diverse employee base and in racial equity work, et cetera. So ESG does some of that lifting for us, but frankly, we keep talking about going beyond ESG. I think we need to get to a place where we're able to measure these social outcomes independent of just ESG scores, and we're working on that. And again, we're not the only ones working on this. I think in the philanthropic space, there are a number of entities that are trying to solve for this. And I think once we do, in addition to probably needing some standards for ESG to be set at the federal level, through the SEC, et cetera, I think we'll get to a place where answering that question will be a lot easier. But we're focused on making sure that we're using whatever data we can to make investments, again, that align with what we're trying to do on the policy side and on the grant making side.
And okay, so that is the big argument, right, with ESG, that there's no solid measurement just yet, and you're actually putting metrics in place. Can you let us know, like, what is your thinking as you create these metrics to measure? Are you working with consultants in the space, or are you using certain things as standard at this point, or are you really kind of surveying and drilling into the research process on what would make an impact?
So it's all the above. We have a director of engaged learning at the foundation that helps us measure and assess the impact of all of our work. So what we want to do is come up with a methodology that we can apply across all of our work to understand the impact to our grant making from those investments, the impact on our policy work, the impact that we're having as an investor. This is all work that's in progress. We absolutely are deep in the weeds on all the research that's being done in this space. And we're also soliciting feedback from a number of our peer foundations around the country who are trying to solve for the same solution. So I think at the end of the day, the philanthropic space can help move not just philanthropy towards this ability to measure social impact in an investment portfolio, but frankly, I think the entire investment field, because we're not the only ones, I think, that approach investment through a mission aligned or a values aligned, let's call it, lens. I think there are plenty of individual investors who would welcome the opportunity to do this as well. But ESG has become just too simplified of a solution for those looking for that type of benchmark. It's not meant to be that. It is a risk management tool, and it's just being distorted into something that it's not meant to be. So we want to create that new methodology that, again, goes beyond ESG, takes into account ESG factors, but as you just said a minute ago, and we've been talking about, when you have such disparate ratings approaches and opaque ratings approaches by the different agencies that are giving out ESG scores, it's really impossible at this point to compare apples to apples.
But Javier, you have a history in establishing new methodologies. If you could kind of go into that over the course of your career, just lightly touch on it. Some of the things that perhaps some experience from the past that you are applying to this endeavor.
Yeah, well, before coming to the Denver Foundation, I was at the Miami Foundation for 10 years as CEO there. And yeah, I'm proud to say that we had a number of signature initiatives that I think, created new methodologies, flipped the script on some things, climate change, perhaps being, one of the ones I'm most proud of. When we started working on particularly sea level rise in South Florida, now it must have been 10 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot of conversation about sea level rise and climate change, particularly in the philanthropic space in South Florida. Yet it was absolutely a crisis already in South Florida. And so we put together a coalition of different local governments and went to Rockefeller Foundation and received the 100 Resilient Cities designation for Miami. Miami had tried to have that designation bestowed upon it in the past, but hadn't been successful because there hadn't been a convener who brought together all the different agencies and local governments in Miami to literally be on one page and apply it to Rockefeller for the designation. So that was a pretty unique combination. Of the 100 resilient cities that Rockefeller ended up designating, this was the only one that had multiple governments attached to it. So when you look at the list, it's the one that goes the longest because it had to include everybody that was at the table. And Rockefeller just hadn't seen anything like that, but appreciated that a community foundation was able to bring all of that together for the benefit of this community that obviously is facing some real challenges with climate change.
Inspiring. And that really kind of changed the landscape in Florida and in the United States and how we viewed climate change at our door.
I think there are ways to talk about climate change. It's like ESG. There are ways to talk about it that you avoid that partisan trap, that political trap, because frankly, climate change is impacting quality of life no matter where you live. 10 years ago, it was pretty obvious when it was flooding on sunny days in South Florida. But out here in the West with wildfires and increasingly freakish storms that we get from time to time, I think clearly there's an impact that we're already all feeling, and we need to be able to talk about it through a solutions lens rather than through a political lens.
And so what tips do you have for others considering the DEI approach and your portfolio approach? What seems to have worked? What lessons have you learned there?
First, humility. Just go on a learning journey. Don't come to the table either A, thinking you have all the answers, or B, expecting that you'll have all the answers after a 2-hour webinar. It doesn't work that way. This is a constant learning journey, and I think frankly, you have to have some humility to approach a learning journey in that way. that's exactly what we're doing. It's across our entire organization. I mean, in addition to all the work that we talked about in the investment committee, we have a racial equity book club, and we convene board members and staff members to that book club, and learn from each other as much as we do from the authors that we're reading. So it's all encompassing. You need to put it on the radar. You just need to commit to making it a priority, and understand that people both within your organization and then in other organizations they're going to be on different parts of this journey, right? But in the philanthropy space, there are some organizations that have been doing this for a while, and on the investment side that are further ahead of the Denver Foundation. But there are many others who haven't even started, because some of this stuff feels really intimidating and almost like overwhelming. You don't know where to start. If you have the humility to say this is a learning journey, you plug in wherever you are on that journey, and then you keep advancing.
Makes a lot of sense. And how have your donors and fund holders responded to this approach?
Very, very favorably. I think we're very clear about what we stand for. The Denver Foundation, as I said, for almost 100 years has been very clear on what we stand for. We care deeply about this community, and we feel like racial equity is at the center of what's going to make us a truly great city moving forward. And donors have responded to that, and sometimes co-invest with us, or just go on the learning journey with us. Again, entering at different points of that journey. So we're really proud of all of the tremendous support that we've received from donors and fund holders, as well as our board and other members of the community who just appreciate that the Denver Foundation, again, hasn't shown up on this journey just within the past couple of years. This has been over 2 decades of making this a priority.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today, Javier Alberto Soto. He's the CEO and president of the Denver Foundation. And I wish you all the luck.
Thank you so much. Great to be with you this morning.
You too.